Hello and welcome to the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. We bring you interviews from people who have conquered the trickiest of health challenges using the functional diagnostic nutrition philosophy and similar healing modalities. You're going to hear from experts who have been through the ringer with their health issues and yet managed to come out on the other side. You can always visit us at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, but for now, here is today's episode. All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 392 of the Health Detective Podcast. As you can see, if you've been on with us recently, I'm working on my background again. We had something that we were promoting before, which we are still promoting, but recently, I'm kind of spare you guys of all my personal details of my life, although you do get a lot of those, it seems, on this show. We weren't actually sure if we were going to stay in this exact apartment. They do kind of charge you if you start tacking stuff to the wall, which is worth it if you're staying for a long time, but not worth it if you're leaving soon. We are staying, so the background is going to be quickly rebuilt, and it's going to be better than ever before. That's going to be fun. If you're wondering, what the heck was he promoting? It is beautiful Miami, Florida, where we are having the first ever East Coast FDN conference. So this is going down at the Bioidentical Expo February 28th, which is Friday, and Saturday, March 1st of 2025. We're expecting a little over 100 FDNs and staff members to be there, and we are teaming up with Sandy Martin of the Biohacker Expo. So we figured the best way to do this is actually to sponsor other large conferences, be the main stage sponsor, of course, so we can be the big dogs, but not have to host one ourselves and deal with all the crazy work that comes with it. So that is going down. I have not announced this officially yet in our group, so I don't want you to think you missed anything, but it looks 99% certain that we will be doing a private meetup on that Friday night. So we are making something convenient for you guys, easy with the travel. You don't have to stay any extra amount of days to meet everyone, but we are looking at something on Friday night. We will let you know when that happens. I see tickets being sold every single day. It makes me very happy. So thank you guys for buying them. Go to biohackerexpo.com and use code HDP, like Health Detective Podcast. That's code HDP for 50% off all of your tickets. You are allowed to use these. People are so nice that they even asked this. You're allowed to use this with spouses or friends if you want. This is just a code for the FDN community. She knows that we're sharing it on the podcast, so really anyone can use this. We can't stop anyone from using it, and we would love to see you guys there. I see quite a few people on today, and I'm guessing that's not only because of the topic, but because you saw a very special name, which is our very own Jennifer Woodward. So I should be able to just recite her bio by heart by now, but let me use the glasses for this one really quick. Jennifer Woodward is a woman's hormonal health expert who has helped over 1,200 women transform their health. After overcoming her own hormonal crisis, she now empowers women to thrive through perimenopause with clarity and confidence. And as of recently, something that we'll be talking about today, as well as the contents of this thing, you are now the author of the book, Easy Perimenopause. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Ev. I am thrilled to be here. It feels like home just to be here at FDN with all my favorite people. So thanks for having me on.
Yes, writing a book is no joke. You know that I don't even talk about this on here, mostly because it's not very good. But I published one in 2020 as a public speaker. It's just something that you use as like a business card as a speaker. So this is not some Barnes & Noble type thing. And all I really had to do was share my story. I didn't have to get into technical science stuff. I also was able to just throw this out to an editor. They could clean up the parts for me, proofread it, and I was good to go. So it was as simple as it could be, and it was tough. I mean, this took me 6 months to a year, multiple hours every single day dedicated to this. I can't even imagine how much goes into something where certainly parts of your story are shared, but also this technical scientific information. So give us the spiel on that first, then we'll get into obviously good info for you guys today. But how long did this take, do you think? Can you even estimate the hours?
Well, I don't know if I can break it down hour by hour, but it definitely took me an entire year. I had a year start to finish with my contract. They were like, Jennifer, you're signing November 15th. You need to have your manuscript in November 15th. So November 15th, I was yelling at my family, leaving the house, sitting in the parking lot at McDonald's, poaching their Wi-Fi and finishing up a couple edits because it is so much work to get a book done. They say it's like having a baby, and it is true, but man, what a labor of love. And just like a baby, when it comes out, you're like, did I make that?
Mhm.
It's just so cool to see the process start to finish. So, like I said, a good year. Thankfully, all of my children play sports. So I was at practices and games and tournaments, writing in the car and writing, at practices and anytime I possibly could, I was just in the research. And you guys know, if you know me, that I am a huge research nerd. I love school. I love research. So that was one of the most fun parts for me is, diving into the literature and seeing, how we can apply what is out there in the published research to perimenopausal women. And I will tell you, there is not a lot. It is really hard to get good research on perimenopausal women because this client population is so underserved in the research. But it was just lots and lots of fun.
I don't know if you'll know what I mean by this. I feel like this would be a universally shared thing. I feel like everyone should do, even if you're not going out and selling it, that's not the point. You should do this at one point in your life. I just think it helps you as a person. I feel like it's a personal development journey to try to create something like this. Does that make any sense? Do you know what I'm saying?
100%. It
Okay,
is, I mean, it's an evolution of what you've been taking in. There is this concept of after you have received so much, you want to give back, right? And so, like many FTNs, I was taking course after class after certification, got my master's in science, and I just thought, I have all this information now. It's time for me to put out, to give back. And so absolutely, I think it's a personal growth journey. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about the process. It has been just, I mean, I'm pinching myself. I can't believe it's done. I can't believe it's created and finished, but also I know there's a lot more work to do. And I was laughing because I was meeting some new people. My son got on a new basketball team, and the inevitable question is, what do you do? And I thought, well, I write. I'm an author. Like, that's what I want to say now. I'm an author.
you're like J.K. Rowling. I'm kind of like her, basically,
No,
for
no,
perimenopause.
no. My mom hasn't even bought my book yet. No,
That's
but
awesome.
still, in the
Okay.
little teeny part of the world that I'm in.
So let's give people some of the nitty gritty. I see over 20 of you on with us right now. If you have any questions for Jennifer, this is a little bit different because Jennifer's been on so many times and she loves and knows you guys. So normally I wouldn't allow for questions until like 30, 40 minutes in. Anytime that you guys want to throw a question to Jennifer throughout this podcast, please feel free. Otherwise, we still have plenty of information to share with you. So, of course, no matter how much you give away today, you can never give out everything that's in the book. So I just want to go from the high level overview stuff. How is the book divided? Like, what are the different sections? What can people, I guess, expect and hope to learn about that maybe they don't know about already in terms of perimenopause, things that they wouldn't have gotten from podcasts with you in the past? How is the book different?
Absolutely. So just the education on perimenopause is so lacking. The book opens with the quote, "Did you know 9 out of 10 women have never heard of the term perimenopause?" And that's the premise that I'm working off of. We know because we're in the space, but if you're on social media, if you're out and about, most people do not know what the word perimenopause means. They know what menopause means, and they, are familiar with that to an extent. But when you start going into, perimenopause being that time before and around menopause itself, they're like, oh, I thought I was just getting older, right? Or I thought my doctor told me this was normal, or my lab tests, didn't show anything, and my lab tests were normal. And so just working off that education piece for women to understand, man, this belly fat, these mood swings, this insomnia, these weird periods, my rage that's coming out of nowhere, those are common symptoms of perimenopause, but they're not normal in the grand scheme of things. So that's the working premise of the book, is education. And my theory, after working with over 1,200 women, is that the reason why so many perimenopausal women tend to feel these super exacerbated symptoms in perimenopause is because they've spent their 20s and 30s devoting themselves to what I call the overs, right? So over exercise, over dieting, over stressing, and being overtired. And those 4 things really, really show how being in fight or flight mode all the time is going to make every single symptom that women experience in perimenopause worse and worse.
Yeah, we kind of just burn the candles at both ends and until we can't ignore it anymore. And we know this because this affected us earlier in our lives. Some of us in childhood were getting affected with this stuff. And I think we're in an interesting time. It's kind of like COVID with the mental health stuff. It's
Mhm.
shown a light or shined a light on stuff that we really didn't want to see. And it doesn't mean that it's fixed overnight, but at least there's awareness. I think what we're seeing now, and I see this as someone who's 29, there are just people that don't including myself, honestly, that don't resonate with what our parents or grandparents said. Like, oh, when I was your age, I was doing all this stuff. And you know me, I'm a high energy person that is constantly doing things. But the reality is, I know that I have to kind of monitor myself. And like, I'm certainly not sitting there ever getting 4 hours of sleep per night. Like, I'm able to do all this stuff, but it's driven by passion. And it's also driven with, hey, I went to bed at this time and I ate this amount of food and I made sure that I didn't get any chemicals and all that stuff. I think we have pushed the human body so far that we're seeing a generation now that is just not able to do this burning the candles at both ends, even in their 20s, let alone what's going to happen when they do experience, if they're a female, experience something like menopause. So for them to be aware of these things earlier on, I think is very powerful. I can't believe that 9 out of 10 women, and that's a real study, real survey?
Well, it's a very first study cited in the book. Yes.
Wow. Well, no, and listen, I know that I live in a bubble. I actually bring that up frequently here when people talk about the business of health coaching and saying it's oversaturated. I'm like, well, you live in a bubble. Well, clearly so do I. And I don't even know it sometimes, because I would have never thought that it would be 9 out of 10 people don't know that. So let's actually, just to be clear then, hopefully we have everyone on here that knows about this. Why do you think everyone knows about menopause but not perimenopause? Because you said everyone knows about menopause. Whether that's literally true or not true, I'm sure it's still way higher than 50%, or at least I'd hope. But why do they know about that and not perimenopause?
So menopause is this very definitive transition, right? Once your period is done for 12 months, you are officially in menopause. Our moms talked about menopause. Our grandmothers talked about menopause. We know what menopause is. It means no period, right? Perimenopause is definitely, number one, kind of a newer term. In fact, when I was going into my niche for perimenopause, a couple of my business mentors were like, Jennifer, don't do that. Nobody knows what perimenopause is. You're going to be talking about it and no one's going to understand. And in the last year, it has just exploded in the wellness space. So many people from, the Holderness family on Instagram and Facebook to, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, all of these, people from pop culture. Naomi Watts just put out a book on menopause, so many people are starting to talk about it. But that's really, really just been maybe in the last 18 months. So the reason why I think more people aren't in tune with perimenopause is because it's such a nebulous concept. It can occur for up to 15 years. So these symptoms that women are experiencing maybe in their late 30s, early 40s, there's no name for it, right? There's no diagnosis for it. When women go to their doctor and they're complaining of insomnia and mood swings and weird periods, again, their doctors say you're just getting older. It's normal. Your lab tests look fine. And so the women walk away from this appointment with their doctor thinking, well, it must be me. Something's, must be wrong with me. Instead of the doctor saying, well, my love, you are transitioning into perimenopause. Here's what to expect. And here's how we can handle it from a holistic way. So again, the menopause transition itself is very definitive. Perimenopause, very abstract and nebulous.
Not that I want to get into the weeds here, but I'm like, is the only definition of menopause lacking a period for 12 months? Because I'm thinking about all the 20-year-olds that I've worked with or talked to that get off the pill and they don't have a period for 12 months.
So that is hypothalamic amenorrhea, right? So when your hypothalamus is not functioning appropriately, or you're in the athlete's triad and you're working out too much and you're not eating enough food, that is one of the reasons why women will lose their period. That's amenorrhea is different from true menopause. And we can also see menopause when, your LH levels are depressed, your progesterone levels are really low, FSH is really low. So we can test for menopause itself, but symptomatically women know, and they've known since, ancestral times, that they're in menopause, whatever that is, once a period's done for 12 months.
Well, and I hope that people have the common sense to know that I'm clearly aware that there is a difference there. But I was wondering, I'm like, that's a fairly loose definition if that was the only thing. So, I mean, there has to be something, I guess, a little bit more. Maybe it is measuring certain hormones and stuff that would 100% definitively say this is menopause, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right. So again, if you guys have questions, if you're just tuning in, welcome. This is a little bit of a different podcast because we have our wonderful Jennifer Woodward on, and she's been on so many times. So if you guys have questions, I'd love to prioritize yours. I have to know my place, and sometimes I do believe that just maybe, perhaps, our audience would have better questions around perimenopause than 29-year-old bearded me. I could be wrong, but maybe. Tracy said, is it possible to actually go in and out of menopause? I asked because my doctor told me that was possible.
I love this question. So what your doctor is describing is perimenopause. So, if you don't have a period for 7 months, then you have a period again. it's perimenopause. If you don't have a period for 11 and a half months and then you have a period again, that's perimenopause. Once you're actually in menopause, that is an endpoint, right? There's a stopgap there. You've not had a period for 12 months and you don't continue to have a period, right? You continue not to have a period. That is true menopause. Anything that does not meet that parameter is perimenopause.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then, all right. So if there's people listening, because our audience has expanded a little bit, Jennifer. So we know, I'm just going off averages. We know that there are 80% of people listening who are women. We know that there's women as young as 25. Sometimes, yes. And again, guys, I'm going off averages. So average from 25 to 55. So a lot of these women are not even in a place where, menopause is something that they're maybe thinking too deeply about. So what are some of the steps that someone could take if they are approaching this age? What are some of the things that they can do to help avoid this seemingly really not fun thing that perimenopause could be? A 15-year stretch potentially sounds awful. I'm just being honest. So how do we proactively prepare for that so that we can kind of go through a smooth transition here?
Yeah. And everyone here is in the exact right spot, right? Every program I build, everything I do with clients, my book, all based off of the DRESS protocol. Obviously, I run a lot of functional labs on my clients, but even without the functional labs, there is so much progress that someone could make using the DRESS protocol and not necessarily having to go into expensive functional labs. So that is diet. We talk about nutrition a ton in the chapter. I'd love to get into that a little bit. Rest, of course, exercise, which looks way different for perimenopausal women than it does for women in their 20s and 30s. Stress management, which is basically the crux. Like, this is huge. If you are not managing stress, if you are stuck in fight or flight mode, premise of the book, your perimenopausal symptoms are going to be awful. All right. So I give you tons and tons and tons of research and tips of getting out of fight or flight mode. And then supplement. So, my working theory with clients is that supplements, again, are just that. We talk about it a lot at FDN. Supplements are fine as a supplement. They should not be a cure-all. We don't have a pill for every ill. I talk a lot about food-based supplements in the book, things I use with my clients. I have 3 core hormone recipes that I use with my clients. And aside from that, I'll give some general recommendations on supplement protocols. I have, case study after case study after case study in the book where I'm really going through my own private clients and, sharing their stories. Of course, I have permission and NDAs from all my clients to do that, but you can really see individual cases, what we're doing and how bio-individual perimenopause can be when it comes to supplementation, but not to the rest of the DRESS protocol. So that is where I would start, of course, with nutrition. But I will say, and this, in the past couple of years, I've gotten so much information out of, the circadian rhythm, like rabbit hole that's out there, right? Light and how we are these outside creatures living inside life. So if I was to give one tip for anyone listening today who's struggling with perimenopausal symptoms, it is spend 5 minutes a day outside for every 60 minutes you sit in front of a screen.
And to be fair, that's like kind of bare minimum, right?
Bare minimum. That's a good place for people to start, though.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and the light thing rather, is tough because the answer kind of is, well, how often should you be outside? It's kind of like, well, as often as you can. That's kind of how we were designed. I love that you mentioned that, though, and I love that it's becoming more of a talking point for you because I noticed this even when we did our 12 days of Christmas special together. Because I've been shouting this for the last 6, 7, 8 years while I've been here. And not that I was the one who came up with it. I'm just a messenger, right? There's people 1,000 times smarter than me that realize this stuff. But in my own health journey, and I'm not going through menopause, believe it or not, in my own health journey, I could not get that last 10 to 15% without optimizing the circadian rhythm like fully. I was going to bed at 10. I was waking up at 6, but I wasn't necessarily going outside, getting the sunlight, blocking it, blue light fully at night. It was when I did that stuff that you're like, wow, your body just works better. And it's tough for people because they think, well, okay, water, I drink that goes into my body. Food, I eat that. Supplements, I take these. So we kind of expect when we consume something, that's going to have the biggest effect. And it's kind of hard to comprehend that, wait, so I just get out in this light ball that's out there, and then I don't use certain light at night, and that's going to help me heal. And it's like, yes, imagine it like your body's working better. That's really what it is. If everything's working better in your body, if your healing ability is stronger, of course you're going to feel better. So I love that that's a thing for you. Let's go to the nutrition side because you made it very clear you wanted to touch on that. And I always think this is an interesting point because it is it's kind of sad to me, if I'm being honest, how many people I talk to that are women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that somehow have adopted this idea. like they wouldn't meet the diagnosis for an eating disorder. I'm not a clinician, but from my understanding, they would not meet the diagnosis for that. But like I would call the eating disordered and they don't know it. I mean, they're eating 1,500 calories a day. It's all protein and fat normally, or if they got on that train, right? Or it's super low fat. There's still some hanging on to that concept. Very minimal carbs, some protein. Like the bottom line is it's not even close to enough calories. So what does proper nutrition actually look like for a woman that's going through this phase of her life?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot in the book. If you are not eating at least 2,000 calories a day most days, you're barely even meeting your basal metabolic rate. You are barely going to be getting enough energy to have a healthy heart rate. So I have a lot of clients they think it's tachycardia. They'll go to the doctor and they will get a heart rate monitor. And really it just ends up that they're malnourished and they don't have sufficient minerals, right? I will see a lot of clients who just can't grow hair. They're like, should I try sea moss? Should I try this Nutrafol? And I'm like, could you try food? You could eat, you could eat food. That will help a lot, right? Or they have poor digestion, right? And they're eating 1,200, 1,500 calories a day. And I see a lot of this too. Yes, women are really optimizing their protein, but they're also eating a ton of vegetables, like too many vegetables. Vegetables are great. I'm big on plants, but when you finish every meal with a huge stomach ache and you have bloating and gas and you can't go to the bathroom the next morning, and I ask you what you're eating and you're like, well, every day I have a salad for lunch and a salad for dinner, but I'm getting 120 grams of protein. I'm like, that's great. But if it hurts your tummy, don't eat it, right? You don't have enough calories to break down your food. It takes a lot of energy to break down your food. If a woman's not sleeping, she has severe insomnia, or she wakes up every night between 1 and 3 a.m. Yes, we know that's liver tea detoxification time, but also your blood sugar is likely dropping out. Your cortisol levels are rising. Why? Because you haven't eaten enough food that day. So all of these processes, like almost every single symptom that a woman will come to me with, or really any FDN in this time of life, it can be fixed by eating enough food. There are, some interesting studies too in the book that show, with regards to light, especially like women eating a controlled calorie diet, right? They're eating 1,500, 1,600 calories a day, who are working the night shift still cannot lose weight in the same way that people who have a regular diurnal cortisol pattern can. And so you combine all these screens and you combine lack of sunshine with a very low calorie diet, you just have a recipe for metabolic disaster. And again, it starts to manifest right around the age of 40. Everything that women have tried for, in their 20s and 30s stops working in their 40s with regards to diet and exercise. So my first objective with my women, and the first thing that I'm really trying to drill down on the book, is eat enough food. Eat enough food.
Yeah, it's like kind of, again, it's really sad that this happens. I mean, the amount of times that I hear like a 1,200, 1,500 calorie a day thing is normal is just insane to me. I mean, that's like what a toddler, guys, look this up. It's not my opinion. This is what a toddler should be eating. So if the government's recommending it, you already know that you're probably off. So and I mean, in a way that's too low. You're probably not eating enough. I think there's also people that do this unintentionally. For example, and we're the same way when we're on a camera or presenting, everything that I'm doing is so intense. There's so much extra energy involved, whether it's pickleball or a podcast or whatever it might be. And that's not a bad thing, but I need to remember that I'm burning energy. I realized this was only about a year and a half, 2 years ago, how short I was on calories. Like some days I was eating 2,500, 2,700. You wouldn't think that that's that bad, except if you're approaching every meeting with the level of energy of a crazy person, you're weightlifting, you're doing other sports, whatever. I've actually found that even at 180 pounds, that's all I am. I need to do more like 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day. I don't get fat from that, man. Like I feel better from that. And so I don't even, I don't know what our ancestors did sometimes, because I'm like, they always have access to that amount of calories. I'm not sure, but I know in today's world, that is what some of us need. If we're going to go live these super high stress lifestyles, that energy has to come from somewhere. And one of the easiest ways to get energy is the food that we're consuming, right?
Absolutely. And one of my favorite studies to bring up is the Minnesota starvation experiment. So this was during World War II. We had some conscientious objectors, some Amish men who wanted to not participate, in like killing others, right? But still participate in the war effort. So essentially, long story short, this study took these healthy, able-bodied men, probably just like you have, and gave them a surplus of calories every day. For them, it was 3,000 calories a day. After 6 months, they cut them down to 1,500 calories a day. And what did these men do? They became obsessed with food. They would start to seek out recipes from other people. They bought pastries and watched little kids eat pastries outside of a pastry store. Just very obsessive, weird food behavior. what are we women doing with our friends, as we're sitting around having cocktails? We're looking at recipes, right? We're talking about food. We are obsessed with the food that we cannot have, and our bodies just function so much better when we have access to the food we need. Now, there is a caveat, for women who are actually carrying excess weight, and who are eating too many calories. There's a time and a place, especially for a perimenopausal woman, to go on a controlled calorie diet, but I will not do that any longer than 6 weeks. 6 weeks, that's it with my women. And then we move back into maintenance. That doesn't affect the metabolism. And it really, allows the body to drop excess weight as long as it's done correctly. So a woman can get to a metabolically healthy spot. So I'm not telling everyone like go out and eat 4,000 calories a day. No, I'm not telling you that. But if you're eating, 1,200, 1,500 calories a day, my recommendation is to add 50 to 100 calories per week until you get to around 2,000 calories, and sit there for a little bit and see how you feel. How do you sleep? How much energy do you have? Do you stop yelling at your husband and your kids? Are you able to have a healthy bowel movement every day? Is your hair starting to grow back? These are good biometrics that don't need any lab testing in order for you to feel better.
There's so much stuff that you're able to say on these podcasts that if I said I'd get, if I had told the women keep eating until you stop yelling, there would be no health detective podcast anymore, but you can get away with it. It's awesome. Here we go. We have some audience questions. Thank you. It's very rare. I don't try to pronounce someone's name, but I don't want to butcher it here. I'm sorry. I do not know how to pronounce this, but they asked, do you prefer salivary or blood hormone testing? This is probably going to be an interesting answer.
Yeah, neither. I actually prefer the Dutch test. So I really do like urinary testing. I will sometimes use salivary testing. I will sometimes send my clients for blood testing, but I've been using the Dutch test for years. And so I find it very, very helpful in my practice. There are so many metrics that we have on the Dutch that I can't pick up via salivary or blood testing.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the weeds here too deeply, guys, especially, that whole topic is multiple podcasts in and of itself. The reality is, depending on what you're doing, what you're looking for, what level of expertise you have, salivary, blood, and urine all have scientific validity. And there's times and places to benefit from and use all of them. So we definitely could do a podcast on that. Same person with another question. Thank you here. Would GI function be a factor with poor digestive function? I'd have to guess yes.
Yes. Long story short, absolutely.
And well, let's dive into that. That's a good talking point, though. I'd love to dive into that a little deeper. Like when you're working with these women who are in this perimenopause phase, if you will, what are some of the things that you do find when you look at their GI tracts and you do GI testing with them? Because it's not just as simple even as poor digestion, right? Or there's other things contributing to it. There's parasites, bacteria. Like what are you finding with these women?
Yeah, I find a lot. So I'm using the GI map and I'm finding a lot of H. pylori. When you have H. pylori, of course, you're going to be, ineffective at breaking down proteins and bacteria and parasites in and on your food. So I see a lot of women with just poor digestive function who are bloated all the time. All right. When H. pylori is present, I tend to see a lot of parasites, especially Blastocystis hominis. I will see a lot of overgrowth of, opportunistic bacteria and really low commensal bacteria. I am seeing a lot of low phyla, so Bacteroidetes, Firmicutes, all low in a lot of my women that just aren't eating enough food or are a victim of the over stressing, over dieting, being overtired, and over exercising. So we really, really have to dial those things in to have appropriate gut function. Otherwise, you're going to see a GI map that's lit up like a Christmas tree, and I often do.
Okay. I also will put it in the chat directly. I'll do this right because I just don't want to wait. I want to make sure people can get it. We have about 30 people live with us right now. If you guys have questions and you're just tuning in, please feel free to throw them to Jennifer. I'd much rather hear from you guys. But I did just add a QR code. You can get Jennifer's book there. If you're an FDN, maybe you're a recent graduate or a trainee, there's so many things here at FDN that we benefit from that you don't even necessarily realize if you're new are from Jennifer. If you like the way that the graduate group is ran, that is largely Jennifer to thank. If you do business school, that is definitely Jennifer to thank. So there's so many awesome things here that she's contributed to. So I'm going to ask on one hand, you guys know I never ask something like this on here. Just from a support standpoint, it would be awesome if you guys considered looking into her book. And if you're someone who actually wants to learn about this topic, Jennifer is freaking awesome to learn about this stuff from. So we would love to see you guys grab it. And just to be clear, right now they can already get it on Kindle, paperback. They're going to have to wait just a little bit, right?
Yes, we are still in our pre-launch month. So As of February 10th, the paperback will be out. I bought the rights to my audiobook, so that should be out mid-spring or summer. So we do have 3 different options, but right now just the Kindle's out, and it's only $6.99. So it is a super cheap Kindle. Hopefully that helps a lot of people, and you can, share it.
I didn't know you were doing an audiobook too. That's awesome.
I didn't know that either, but I am.
Well, now we are. This is also something people always get confused about, so I want to throw this in there. Kindle, guys, you do not need a Kindle tablet. I cannot believe how many people don't know this, because you can learn all the time for very cheap. Kindle is an app as well. So if you have my phone's charging. If you have an iPhone, if you have an Android, you download the Kindle app for free. All those books on Amazon that you want but maybe didn't get, like, you can actually have that sent to your Kindle directly, which is an app on your phone. I use that all of the time. We're all addicted to scrolling, so you might as well put something on there that is useful. All right, we have some more. Can you post the link to the book here? I did. I'm sorry if that didn't come through yet, my friend. Here you go. I'll comment directly for you. Yes, because the QR code can be a little annoying. So we have that in the comments for you guys. The only place I don't think you can see that, I'm sorry, Restream doesn't let me directly post there for you guys, is on LinkedIn. So for our LinkedIn listeners, if they're watching there, if they can't scan the QR code because they're on LinkedIn on their phone, the link's pretty long. Is there an easier place that they could just search for something and get it, Jennifer?
Yeah, just on Amazon itself. Just type in Easy Perimenopause, the essential guide to modern midlife. It's the only book out there like that. It's actually the number one new release right now in the menopause category. Number 3 bestseller already in the menopause category on Amazon. Just super cool. So please keep it up, guys. It's been so fun to get to see you guys, getting it and reviewing it. So nice. Encouraging.
Okay, so I don't want to give away secret sauce of the book, so I'm going to word this correctly. I don't want you to give away necessarily your top favorite ultimate cool study that you don't believe people would have known about from the book, because they got to read it. So maybe like your second or third favorite study, interesting tidbit, something that you came across when you were researching that you're like, what? I can't believe this. But still, grounded in science. What is like maybe a top 2 or top 3 favorite thing that you included in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually love taking Epsom salt baths. It's kind of a random fact. It's something I really drill into my clients. I found some great research that shows that Epsom salt baths, like being in a hot bath with magnesium sulfate, not only can make you feel better if you are sick, but actually is an immune booster. So it can prevent you from getting sick. Very, very cool research. So I would just tell everyone out there, make Epsom salt baths a part of your routine. It's a great way to get out of fight or flight mode. It is a great way to sleep before bed. One of the tips actually I learned from a fellow FDN during an FDN webinar, Kelly Murray. She said that a hot bath at night artificially elevates your body temperature by 2 degrees, and your body actually has to drop 2 degrees for you to get into deep sleep at night. So it's a really great way if you're struggling with insomnia to sleep well, and it prevents colds and flu, which is really, really fun.
Yeah, I don't necessarily recommend this because it does elevate your heart rate too. So there's a little bit of controversy, but some people will say, I actually like using, my infrared sauna or something before I go to bed. And I think about that. I'm like almost positive that the reason that they like it is because of that paradoxical effect. You think that, I'm getting hotter. It's like, well, you are, but your body, just like if you were in a cold plunge, your body tries to keep you warm. It's doing the reverse when you're overheated. And it just so happens, like you said, we need our body temperature to be lower to get proper sleep. So some people just get like knocked out from these things. But yeah, I don't know if I'd elevate my heart rate that high. The bath sounds like the good medium there. Stone to Flesh bought it. Awesome. Thank you so much for supporting our friend Jennifer. All right. Alina here has a question. Excuse me. Talk about eyes. Let me get these. These are very nerdy glasses, but I think I rock them. Dry eyes and body itching without rash is part of perimenopause. I mean, it's kind of a statement worded as a question. Do you have any remedies? I tested for allergies. I am 47 years old with a regular period. Thank you for being willing to share that stuff. What do you got, Jennifer?
Yeah, I love it. So this is actually one of the surprising hallmarks of perimenopause is itchiness. Like, who thinks that itchiness is, related to perimenopause? It's a common symptom. And part of the reason it happens is because, by your 40s, your liver is just overburdened. It's overworked, right? So there's a condition during pregnancy called obstetric cholestasis, where a woman who's pregnant is just itchy all the time. I had it with my 3rd child and I felt like I was going out of my mind. And the same thing can start to happen with a woman in perimenopause. The liver gets overburdened. The skin gets a little bit more sensitive. sensitive and we tend to get more itchy. A lot of women actually feel it inside their ears, which of course can feel crazy making. And so my very first tip is you've got to calm the nervous system down. All right. Yes, you're itchy. It's a true physical response, but it's also a response of HPA axis dysfunction. So you've got to get out of fight or flight mode. Really, what I want to tell you guys is you're at FDN, do the FDN protocol. You want a little bit more, grab it out of the book. Just keep doing the things that I'm teaching you to do in the book. But first is getting out of fight or flight mode. You, of course, want to make sure that you're getting proper nutrition. Minerals are huge. I have a lot of research about specifically potassium in the book. So potassium is huge, for mineral status and will calm down your nervous system, will help the liver. It will help that itchiness for sure. And then you want to make sure you're getting outside too, right? Like, again, these basic principles. If I could have go back, you asked me a couple of my favorite pieces of research in the book. One of the other things I found that I really love sharing with women is fairly current demographic research. We don't have research from 2024 though, that is out there published in the literature yet, but fairly recent, 2019, shows that on average, women in perimenopausal age group, so somewhere between 35 and 47 years old, are only eating about 68 grams of protein a day. Again, we think we're eating a lot of protein because we're in this space, we are in the FDN space. We know protein is very important, but I recommend for my women that they get at least 100 grams of animal protein a day, not plant protein, animal protein a day. And so if you're looking at that in terms of being an overachiever, right, most of us are getting a 68% when it comes to protein class. All right. That's a D, and we are not D students, right? So that is the thing that I really, want to drill into people is that, the average woman is basically getting a D in protein class. So really encourage, yourself and then those around you to make sure that that is something that you are drilling down, because that's going to be important too. If your body's malnourished, it's going to be itchy, right? If you're not getting enough protein, it's going to be itchy. The other thing I will see specifically for itchiness is food sensitivities, right? So I would be really careful to run the MRT on yourself, on your clients. In perimenopause who are struggling with itchiness, that could be a really good first tier intervention because you can remove foods that the body actually has that IgG response to.
I love that you still promote MRT because I know some people, the farther that they go with this, they're like, oh, do we do food sensitivities? Do we not? I'm like, okay, I'm not arguing that food sensitivities are rarely causal. I do think, leaky gut and other things are leading to it. But how are you going to make the argument that that's not a stress on the person's body right now? Obviously it is. If I'm sensitive to a food and I'm eating them, regardless of what caused it originally, it is still an added stress that's clearly making my situation worse. So I love that you brought that up. I also I got to make sure I get myself outside more because I've never seen my eyes go bad. And I know I must be spending too much time on the computer with FDN stuff because I put my glasses on. I'm like, oh, your camera's great. I can see your cheekbones. You're just like a blob normally. I never realized how bad it is until I put these on. We got Crazy Monkey 10 just pre-ordered the book. You sound like a fun person just based on your name. I don't know if that's a kid's YouTube account, but thank you, Crazy Monkey. That's awesome. We'll go to Tabitha's question because I think we can maybe expand on even one of the things that you just brought up with animal protein. So Tabitha is a trichologist. She helps people with hair loss. Thank you for knowing that I wouldn't know what that is. I appreciate you, Tabitha. Is there specific foods to help with those hormones or just eating those good 2,000 calories per day? So you did touch on the animal protein side. Is there anything else we want to add here?
Yeah, there are specific minerals, that will help with hair, right? Biotin, really important. This is one of the reasons I like the Dutch test. We actually look for markers of biotin on the Dutch test, right? So that is a B vitamin that specifically is going to help with hair growth. I kind of dogged Irish sea moss gel earlier, but it is something I will use with my daughter and my clients to help rebuild hair just because it is so incredibly nutrient dense. It has a lot of sea minerals in it, right? You're getting boron and iodine. You're getting all of these good minerals that someone who has, hair loss obviously is not getting, right? We know that healthy hair, like shiny, healthy, thick, full hair is a result of a very nourished body. And if your hair is falling out, your body is malnourished. It's not a process of the body that the body is going to prioritize when it has other things to do, like keeping you alive with your heart rate and respiration. So biotin specifically, if you're talking like supplements too, Irish sea moss gel with that complete spectrum of sea minerals, but you can also use something like trace minerals, and that's a little blue bottle that's full of every mineral, trace mineral that your body needs. So I would start there.
Awesome. Crazy Monkey 10 said, yes, I realized my son changed my name. Sorry, you don't need to be sorry. And let's just thank God that's all he changed it to. This would have been a heck of a time to figure out it was something a lot worse than Crazy Monkey. All right. Alina said, body temperature is already elevated and reacts to heat. Can't take baths or showers. So this was the person who also brought up the itchiness thing.
Yep.
Good point. I'm sure there's many women that feel like they can't take baths right now or do something that is higher temperature. Any tips here?
I like a foot bath. So this is something I will recommend to a lot of my clients. You can do it while you're listening to a podcast, watching TV. It's not going to elevate your body temperature as much as a hot shower or bath or sauna, but you still get some of the relaxing benefits. You can put up to 3 cups of Epsom salt and some, lavender essential oil in your foot bath, and it will have a lot of the same benefits.
Awesome. Thank you. I love when the questions start coming in. I feel like, guys, every time that we're on here, and especially when there's people watching, it's one thing if it's a low audience. Like when there's 30 people on, I'm like, you're getting it for free. It's free. You have to pay to work with her normally. So you guys are smart. Thank you. All right. We have, what about vegetarians? Jennifer, I recommend protein powders sometimes. So yeah, how do you deal with the vegetarian and vegan thing? We obviously respect people for their individual choices, but we also have to make certain cutoffs or decisions as practitioners. So how do you deal with this?
Yeah, actually, I've worked with a handful of vegetarians, ethical vegetarians, cultural vegetarians. So it definitely can be done. Obviously, we are going to, and this, I just want to clarify here, Roxana, that, okay, I hope I said your name right, Roxana.
A lot of confidence. Yeah.
That you're talking about vegetarianism, not veganism, because that's a really important distinction. If you are vegetarian and you can still eat eggs and fish, that's definitely something that I recommend to do. If you are a full vegan, Orgain, Orgain, has a fairly decent pea protein powder that's pretty easy on the tummy and has about 20 grams of protein per serving. In some of my other clients, we will use some marine collagen. There's also a marine-based amino acids blend, and I can't remember the name right now, but that's something that we'll use like kind of as an elemental supplement with some of our vegetarian clients that are really, really depleted, from a protein standpoint. So Orgain brand, and then if you can, eggs and fish and shellfish are really, really helpful.
I was about to say, I feel like that doesn't come up enough for some reason. Like vegetarianism, if you're really doing it, like eating fish, high quality fish, eating eggs, some people can tolerate dairy a little better. I know that's like, my gosh, you can't say that. I drink dairy all the time, guys. I do very well with it. It actually makes my body feel fantastic. So that's just me. But even if you took dairy away, I feel like vegetarians can do extremely well. I mean, so many of us are so deficient in DHA and these other omega-3s anyway. Like if you actually were focusing on fish and eggs, I think you would do pretty well. So fair enough.
I actually order oysters from Amazon, Crown Prince oysters, and I eat a can of oysters every single week. I think they're delicious. I'll sometimes put them on a salad or just eat them out of the can with some salt. So that's a pretty easy way for most people to just get an extra dose of zinc and iodine and protein throughout the week.
Yep. There we go. All right, we're buffing them out now. Amber, what do you think about bioidentical hormones? Great question. Do you recommend them based on symptoms and testing? If so, which brands? I actually, believe it or not, was thinking this myself because I cannot believe how many people, especially nowadays, I hear that are on hormone replacement therapy. I'm not even arguing against it, but I'd love to know what you think about this.
Yeah, this has been an evolution in my thought process for sure. So first off, I'm clearly not a doctor. I don't diagnose, treat, or prescribe. I cannot advise on anything medical or, as a medication of which bioidentical hormones are. If we're talking about like testosterone and testosterone and estradiol. Now we of course can work with, ProAdapt is one of my favorite progesterone brands from Biomatrix. We can work with over-the-counter hormones like DHEA and pregnenolone. But I will say one of my dearest friends in real life is my actual OBGYN. So she's a practicing physician. And she had me read the book Estrogen Matters. It is a fantastic book that tells us that the Women's Health Initiative, where we got all of this very scare tactic, really, it's not even research. Like we just got a lot of scare tactics from this Women's Health Initiative in the 90s that told women, hey, don't go on bioidentical hormones. Estrogen is going to cause cancer. Now, on one hand, that is possibly true, right? If you're already metabolizing estrogen inappropriately and you're not protected with estriol or progesterone, that is possibly true. But essentially, the Women's Health Initiative was flawed. So I encourage anyone who's serious about this topic to go read that book. The man who wrote the book is an MD. His wife had breast cancer. He actually ended up putting his wife on estradiol, bioidentical estradiol, even though she'd had a previous breast cancer diagnosis, and she lived a long and healthy life. He put his daughter on bioidentical estradiol, even though her mother had breast cancer, and she lived a long and healthy life. So interesting research. And I'm not here to, judge or tell anyone do one thing or the other, but I would say that my personal stance on hormones has greatly evolved over the years. I actually have a medical team that I work with at my practice. So I have some of my clients seeing my doctors who are on now estradiol, and they're on testosterone, and they are feeling really good. I do see a gap for women, particularly who need estrogen. Like, they need estrogen, and aren't being served in the way where they're able to get their hands on it. They start to feel so much better once their body has, the estrogen replacement therapy it needs. There's a quick caveat there. You have to be within 10 years of being menopausal in order for estrogen to have its most efficacious help, right? So if you're, 75 years old and you've been in menopause for, 25 years, it's not going to help you to take estradiol. But if you're 1 year postmenopausal and you are still struggling with hot flashes and, vaginal dryness and loss of zest for life, it could behoove you to talk to someone about going on, estrogen replacement therapy. And read that book, Estrogen Matters. Inform yourself.
I appreciate your objectivity with that. It's something that I'm careful with what I say as a host, because I know people, they take it seriously, and you got to be really careful. But I've had changes in my philosophies around that stuff as well. I'm not sure that I feel this way 100%. I haven't pulled the trigger with anything for myself. I'm 29. However, no, but seriously though, if you had asked me 5 years ago, would I ever take something like TRT? I would have said, you're out of your mind. Why would I do that? It can increase the risk of heart disease. It can increase the risk of stroke. However, all of us are going to die one day. And do people feel better with hormones? I mean, pretty much, no doubt. There is a certain point where I think one needs to be mature, and I don't know if I'm mature enough to figure this out yet. That's why everyone needs to decide this for themselves. But you need to decide if is a potential risk that might take 5 years off, man. 5 years is a long time in a sense, right? It's short, but it's also a long time. Is that time worth trading for a better quality of life? I think that depends on a lot of things. And the reason I've become more open to it is it's not because I'm complaining. It's not a victim mindset. That's not what I mean. But I really did live suboptimally for most of my childhood, for most of my teenage years, for most of my early 20s. I'm having fun now, and I like that I can do kickboxing and pickleball and all this stuff. But I already see, even as healthy as I am, I can't really keep up with some of this stuff forever. So it's like you have to weigh in your head what lifestyle is better. And always keeping in mind, because we get so deep into the functional medicine that sometimes I think we forget that we are vulnerable, and we are not going to be here forever. So it's we got to balance this stuff. And I think the technology is only going to get better, thank God. So hopefully we can do these things safer.
Ev, I do want to tell you guys this too. I do address this in the book. We talk about bioidentical replacement therapy. We talk about optimal ranges for all sex hormones, including DHEA and pregnenolone. So, it's a good resource to have to bring to your doctor. And if you're tested, and this is blood labs that we have in the book, right? Because there are no really standard reference ranges for functional labs at this point. But if you bring that to your doctor and say, my estradiol is this low and this is the range that I would like to get it at least you're educated enough to go in and, share this information with your physician. It's very important as a woman. I will say, as a 42-year-old woman who went through the FDN course in 2016, ran my salivary cortisol and sex hormone panel, and discovered that I was a victim of my own overs and had zero estradiol, and of course not zero, but below reference range estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone that I have been struggling to get up for the last 8 years. I recently met with my own medical team that I have at Jennifer Woodward Nutrition, and I have been on bioidentical testosterone replacement therapy now for about 6 weeks. And I have to say, I work out, I lift weights, do that about 3 times a week. The recovery that I have after going on just a little teeny bit, I take 2 units of testosterone 3 times a week, very small amount. I have felt so much better with my workouts, and that helps me with the rest of life. If I'm not sore all the time, my back's not hurting from sitting at a computer and doing my workouts, it just helps enhance my quality of life. And like you said, Ev, that's what we're after, right? We don't need to feel like shit our whole lives when there are, things out there that can help us if they are used in conjunction with something like the dress protocol. Because I've seen also women who are on bioidentical hormones who are drinking a ton of alcohol and coffee and working out on an empty stomach and not getting enough food. They don't feel any different, right? You have to live the life
supplementary to a lifestyle that an FDN lives. Then I think you can have the conversation around, the philosophical side. Like, you've been in these trenches forever, right? So you can make that decision, in my opinion. Wow, between the oysters and the testosterone, your husband must really be liking this functional medicine stuff at this point.
We
I
have a
know
good
Jennifer really well, so I can make that joke. Don't click off, please. You can see she's laughing. So, but yeah, if he was skeptical before, he's loving it now. All right, before I get
20
myself kicked off, let's get to a normal question. What is the best app to track macros like protein?
Hands down, Chronometer is my favorite. So Chronometer. I talk about it in the book. It's on my resources page for the book. It is a free app, and it doesn't only track your macros, which of course is important. It tracks your micros. I want to know your micronutrients. Protein is very important. Proteus, that Greek word, means of primary importance, but potassium, calcium, sodium, iron, these are the nutrients that our body actually uses, according to the nutrient leverage hypothesis, to shut down cravings and to help your body feel optimal. So really tracking those micronutrients is going to be even more helpful than macronutrients. And right now, Chronometer does the best job with that.
Catalia, this will be our last question here. Thank you for this one. Do you ever recommend sulforaphane?
I do. I will use 2 different formulations. So if on a Dutch test, I do see that just traditional estrogen is high, especially if there's an estrogen dominant situation where progesterone is also low. But the metabolism, the pathway of estrogen is a clean pathway. So they're metabolizing all their estrogen down the 2-hydroxy pathway. Then I will use indole 3-carbinol, which of course is, sulforaphane based supplement. If they have poor estrogen metabolism and their methylation is showing that they are metabolizing more of their estrogen down the 16-hydroxy or 4-hydroxy pathway, then I will, and their actual estrogen is high too, their estradiol, then I will use DIM, diindolylmethane. So it's a really clear distinction there. You don't want to drop already low estrogen by using DIM.
Awesome. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your dedication to what you're doing. For those that don't know her full story, I mean, you made an entire career switch to become an FDN. And yes, we're talking about health today, but what's so cool about you is, like, you're the poster child for what we want for FDNs. Left an entire career that you didn't resonate with anymore. Not that you have to do that, but you didn't resonate with anymore. Built a multi-6-figure business where you've helped over 1,000 women now get to do work that you love full time, get to do work that's meaningful to you, wrote a freaking book because of it. I mean, if you guys think about this, think about what she was just able to rattle off today. Imagine what you get in the book. So you can do the QR code above. You can scan that directly and it'll take you to the Amazon page, or you can do Jennifer's book by going on Amazon and searching for Easy Perimenopause. I'm sure you could search her name too. That would probably work as well. And you get the pre-order for the paperback, or Kindle is instantly available. Guys, I really, I don't ask for much. Please leave a review if you read this book. Jennifer is just freaking awesome, and we would love as many people to get this information as we can. Jennifer, any final words of wisdom? Where else can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, I just, like, you rattling that off makes me realize how thankful I am to God's providence in my life, because it's really just through him that any of this gets done. You can find me on Instagram, Jennifer Woodward Wellness. I'm on Facebook. You can just Google me. There's all sorts of fun perimenopause podcasts I've gotten to do. Just a recent one with a girl in town that put out a really great product on perimenopause. So that's on my Instagram story recently. And, if this is your jam, come follow me. Got some exciting news for practitioners in 2025. So I'd love it if you guys were just along for the ride, because it is lots of fun.
I have a little hint of that, so I'd highly recommend that you guys follow her. All right, Jennifer, again, thank you on behalf of FDN for everything that we're doing. We're going to make sure that this, gets out there. We're going to make sure that people know that the book exists, in addition to the amount of people that have already known just because of your presence and everything that you've done. And hopefully we can transform the new-ish world of perimenopause together, right? Thank you again. And if you guys enjoyed this episode today, can you please just drop a thank you for Jennifer in the chat? It lets her know, and our speakers know in general, that people are listening, that they like this information, that they did a good job. You can just thank her if you like business school or the graduate group, because again, Jennifer was behind a lot of that. And we obviously miss her and are so glad that she's having success doing her other stuff and helping, again, 1,000+ women now. That's insane to say. And that was insane to read on the bio that it's at 1,200 now and counting as we speak. So you rock, and we will talk to you soon, and good luck with everything with the book.
Thank you. And thanks for everyone being on today. It's so good